I think what needs to happen also is like, we need to educate people that this isn't high times. This isn't the big canna whatever party where a bunch of people are going to go get all sauced at your place. This is a very conservative operation, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say that. We're welcoming to all worlds of cannabis. I often talk about my Snoop Dogg days in California versus my more medical days now. And it's not to say that I don't occasionally have a Snoop Dogg night.
Right.
But in general, right now, personally, I use cannabis as a wellness tool. And sometimes people are appalled when they hear my routine, because sometimes if I've had a particularly bad day and I've had patient after patient after patient that's very, very sick, the first thing I do when I go home is just clear my head of that by inhaling whatever strain that I think deem appropriate at the moment.
Right.
And, I like to have a wide variety on hand, and I believe that the ability of cannabis to bring you into the present moment is one of its greatest gifts.
Wow, that's pretty well said. I've been around cannabis for a number of years of my life. I was introduced at a very young age, and I'm sure you were too. We'll talk about that. And after a while, you just kind of get with the flow. But to be honest with you, I never really accepted cannabis until the dispensaries came out, where the better stuff was starting to happen, and so you had better product coming out. It was being tested. You weren't as you weren't meeting some guy at the gas station parking lot and giving you a baggie of stuff,
Right.
and he said, well, this is so and so. Like, you don't know what that is. You don't know if it's sativa or indica or dirt weed. You're just like, okay, man, here's your money, and go on, right? So now dispensaries are really good, and so now I'm sure when you have I'm gonna keep going back to the seniors a little bit. So when you have a senior come in, you personally guide them through the operation a little more handheld than if I came in and go, hey, this is what I want. You're gonna treat me completely different. Is that the way you work out there?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you probably deeper questions than I would ask the novice, because you have a certain profile that you're probably looking for. Every case is individual, and I really, in the last couple of years, have started asking family history on really sick people, because Ethan Ruso has a chart, a Venn diagram, where he has migraines, fibromyalgia, Crohn's. So when I saw that, I started asking people their family history.
Right.
And I have a lot of Crohn's patients, and those Crohn's patients the father and mother have fibromyalgia and migraines. So the endocannabinoid clinical deficiency that Ethan Ruso is pushing for to actually get as a medical term, it's not far away.
That's awesome. I kind of got a lot more involved with cannabis, of course, of being in the industry, but I had some health concerns a number of years ago where I had part of my colon removed. And so after that first surgery, then a year later, I was able to get that reversed. And by the first surgery, they removed part of my colon, gave me a colostomy bag, and I had to get healthy for a year because my colon was super infected, I guess. And so I had to heal for a year, and then after that, they reconnected me. But I got more experience with cannabis after that, because when I first had the second surgery, I'd have these infections and I'd have all kinds of problems, and I would get sick for like a week at a time. I was in pain. Nothing would help. Dipping in the hot showers wasn't enough. Right. And finally, controlling the diet and cannabis. I used to have an event. I called them the events where I used to have a pain attack like once a month or every other week. Now it's been like a year or two. And so, but that's just basically taking care of yourself, your eating habits, but I think cannabis does a lot for me in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, it's my hope that the cannabis industry will push clean food industry, clean soil, clean, all the way through the whole gamut of what you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, well, I thought this kind of goes into the other, kind of the other segue about your operation, because, Copperstate has quite the operation, and you're held by Copperstate, correct?
We are powered by Copperstate Farms, yes.
Yeah, and for people who don't know this, Copperstate is a huge farm, and they're located in the southern part of Arizona. No, northern. Northern, I'm sorry, northern part of Arizona. I was thinking the other one. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Northern part of Arizona. It's a matter of fact, it's really kind of funny because just before you guys got that, I was up there with my two partners, and we're like stomping the ground of that facility and dreaming about doing that ourselves. Yeah. And that was totally out of our bandwidth. And we're talking about a 40 acres undercover greenhouse that they can grow a lot of stuff and do a lot of cool things in.
It's impressive. There's no doubt about it. And I saw it when there was only 40 employees there, and now there's almost 300. Wow. So it's just growing by leaps and bounds. It's 44 acres of Dutch-style greenhouse. So there's no air conditioning in there. Mm-hmm. If it gets too hot in snowflakes at 6,000 feet elevation, they pull the curtains over the plants, and that's about the only cooling system that's available.
I heard a story back in the beginning because, doing this type of growing is not what I'm used to. I'm used to when I grew, I was in a closed environment with lights and air conditioning, and you controlled the environment with a flip of a switch. You're up there in a greenhouse, and you're really relying on Mother Nature. And when you have a heat spell, you have to treat those plants a lot differently for you don't whack them, right?
Yeah, I remember before I was even hired, going up there, and it was, 100 degrees up in Snowflake that day, and everyone was concerned about the plants. It's its own monster, and I mean that in the kindest way. It's great to have the growing room. It's also, things can go sideways fairly easily in that big a space. So,
yeah, that's the thing we always talked about. I just had a meeting yesterday, and we talked about our grow facility and make sure we keep everything segregated out, segregated out in separate zones, because you are going to have a catastrophe. You are going to have a bug come in. You are going to have mold. It's just what's going to happen, right? It just happens in the business.
Well, and I was married to a small grower in Hawaii. And growing in Hawaii is basically you put the seed in the ground and walk away. So to see these grows, and I was part of Monarch when they started their grow, and that was all indoors and controlled. But really, every company struggles for at least the first 2 years with their grow, and that's if they're lucky,
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but we almost did a deal with those guys before Monarch.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I have an aviation business, and I kept my plane at Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be where those guys used to hang out all the time, and we got to know the Johnsons really well. Yeah. And so we thought about doing it, but they went one direction, we went the other, and everyone goes their own direction.
Yeah, and back in those days, there was probably, in Arizona, when I was in the cannabis industry in 2011, there was probably at most 50 players. It was so small.
Well, Ken, when this first started in 2010, the governor did not quite roll this out really quickly.
No, she didn't.
And so I'm trying to be polite there. She was really more of a doorstop than anything. Then it made it challenging for us to get open. We spent a good year just waiting. But we used that year pretty productively ourselves for looking for real estate. That was the challenge, of course, is real estate. But in your sense, before dispensaries were open, you worked at a caregiver collective. Is that? And I think I met you there also.
Yeah, I actually managed it, and it put a pretty big target on my back, which worked to my advantage. So Bill Montgomery and I have a TV segment. I think it was Channel 15 we were on. So they interviewed me at the Caregiver Collective, and they interviewed Bill Montgomery in studio. And before the piece was finished, he had basically threatened to arrest me 3 different times, which gave me a tremendous influx of job offers at higher pay than I expected. So I'm all for Bill Montgomery threatening to arrest me publicly because it worked out well.
Well, even though it's a class 1, there's enough people in the industry. If you got, snapped up, there would be some people helping you out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, in fact, Ryan Hurley and I think he said 6 cannabis attorneys went down after that aired and talked to the governor at that time, or the mayor. And they said, you don't want to arrest her,
Yeah. So. Yeah. That would not look good on you, right? That would look good on Montgomery. I mean,
Yeah.
For all the flack that we got in the beginning, trying to start up and all the roadblocks, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun stuff.
It's when I train the employees, I try to impress on them that it wasn't this breeze into work, get your paycheck type of situation in the beginning. I mean, there was a lot of fear and anxiety, and I personally was so happy when the dispensaries got open and I didn't have to worry about being locked up on a daily basis. So I'm very happy with the way the industry's going, but at the same time, there is days where I miss, the community that we had.
Yeah, who's gonna knock on the door next?
Yeah,
thing, right? Did it special alert? Did it special alert? Not really, guys. Hey, I just want to give a special shout out to JaneFix for being on the Cooper Still Standing podcast today. She was super great to be here. She was super smart and great to talk to. Make sure you check out the rest of the series with JaneFix and myself. Having viewers like you is really important, and so make sure, you leave a comment, tell us what you feel. Tell us, what you really feel. I'll answer. I really will. I think it's important for me to share my feelings with people. Go ahead. Just leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe and, hit the bell, man. Hit subscribe and hit the bell, man. And join us for Cooper Still Standing. This is Cooper Still Standing. I'm Jeff Cooper, and I'm still standing.